You are live, the thing tells me. So, hey, how's it going, fellas?
It's
Doing
all good,
good.
man.
It's all good. It is, you know? So, today, tonight, whatever, we're going to talk about Macross Zero. Now, just to give you guys, those who are listening, a little bit of context on this. So, production order wise, we had the Macross TV series. We're not counting Robotech now because that's doesn't count here. So we had the Macross TV series, then we had Do You Remember Love, which is the movie, and then we had Macross 2,
Which we don't
Lovers
talk about in
Again.
polite company.
We don't actually. Um, then there was Macross Plus, which was OVAs, and then it was a movie. And then there was the great silence for years, and we had, and then in the aughts, the two
No,
thousands.
you're forgetting something.
Oh,
I
I
think
am.
I think he's deliberately doing that.
Yeah,
Wait. What am I forgetting?
7.
Lucky number 7.
We don't talk about seven. No, okay. Um, so yeah, there was. I'm sorry, you're correct. Oh man, it's like all that therapy down the drain. Okay, never mind. Trying to
Sorry.
forget it. No. If you want, or okay, so there was a TV series after Macross Plus called Macross Seven, and I think there was like maybe three OVAs. I don't
In a movie.
remember, in a movie. Yeah, thanks. And so there was that, and then and and there are some contributions to the Macross universe from that series, but largely you could probably write a page and then understand it if you didn't like the TV series. Anyway, we'll go on. Macross Zero, which came after that, and that was in the early 2000s, by the way. And and this bills itself as kind of a prequel to the TV series a little. So uh, familiar face that we get to see in here is Roy Fokker. Fokker.
I think it's appropriate that you say it's like a prequel to
Poker.
the TV series a
Fokker.
little.
Yeah, yeah. So so yeah, we have Roy Fokker, and then this is um, there's a little bit of retconning history going on here. So there's a little bit of like, hey, because the TV series, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, kind of talks about how um, uh, over technology was used to. Well, actually, I don't even think they use the word over technology. They do use it in this, um, and maybe they didn't. I'd have to rewatch the series again just to hear it, the original Macross TV series. But over technology is any technology that they created as a result of the alien spaceship crashing. So Macross Zero kind of starts off with our main character Shin when he was a kid, recalling some of the events of the crash, which is kind of dramatic in a lot of ways. We get him like he's like, wow, there was like two suns and the earth shook and like and it was and people were scared, but I was just in awe, kind of a thing. That's when the alien ship crashed. Um, now in the TV series, they mentioned that they developed the Valkyries, the transformable mecha of the jets, the VF1 as being developed then. And you do see this piece of the story in the TV series when Claudia is reminiscing about her relationship with Roy after the great Zentradi War. And that's pretty much it. And you go, oh yeah, well, she met up with him again when they were rebuilding, when they're building the SDF-1, and you see him like looking at like the development of it. Well, Macross Zero kind of goes, yeah, there was this other thing that happened. So it kind of it says, yeah, they developed this other thing, this other transformable mecha. Um, and that's kind of an interesting thing. And you get a taste of like some of the end of the unification wars a little bit, just a bit, because there's an anti-UN. force, and that's the primary protagonist, at least from a high level kind of point of view, right? So, and then you have the UN Spacey who are in charge of the VF0, hence the name of the series, development. But there's this whole other thing that happens, so you follow a little bit of Roy, and then you follow Shin, who I mentioned earlier, and so and you see him dogfighting in an F-16 and getting completely obliterated by the anti-UN's forces. But he does a pretty good job. Whoa! Hold on. Wait. All right, I'm going too far.
Okay. Shin actually he proves that he's really good at dogfighting initially,
Yes.
and then because I wanted to interrupt because I think you're doing a really good job of setting things up, but what happens next I think goes into what you're talking about, like how you wanted to set things up as the good, the bad, and the ugly for this series.
Yes.
And it's I think that this initial scene with Shin, like dogfighting, this is squarely in the good. In fact, for me at least, the entire first episode is the good, or very much the best part of the series. But
yeah,
go on, sir.
No,
please.
no, you're absolutely correct. And I believe that this is so Satelight is is Shoji Kawamori's
That's his studio.
studio. Yeah, and this is this is like their first CG stuff that they really produced out of for these fights, I believe. I might be mistaken.
Well,
But
it's 18 years old at this point, and oh my god, it's even if it shows its age, it's still really entertaining to watch.
yeah. No, you know what? I think it looks pretty good. Myron, you got an opinion on that?
Oh, dude, the dog fights were beautiful, especially watching it in 4K, like on a big 4K television. I mean, the animation segments, like the CG animation dogfights, were extremely gorgeous. The transformations that eventually happen throughout the series with the Valkyries are highly detailed. And as I was watching this series, all I could think about was I really want a Bandai DX Chogokin VF0 figure. Where's it at? So
Yeah.
and
It
even
sells that stuff.
it's like, yeah, I mean, for me, it was like another big ass commercial too. So it's like I just want more Veritech. I mean, I want more Valkyries after this. So yeah, the animation quality was extreme for 2002. I mean, this was like, at least in my earliest memory, the kind of first that I've seen of anime using this technique of blended CG and 2D animation, especially when it came to mecha anime. So yeah, it was really well done.
I particularly enjoy the first, and I don't. Is this in the first episode or the second one? There's 5 OVAs here, and there are 30 minutes a piece, roughly. And is it in the first episode that we see the VF0 transform? Roy's at the helm.
Second episode.
No, I think it's
Second
the
episode.
first. No, it's the first
Is it?
episode where he transforms at the end, doesn't it?
Well, if I remember correctly, like the Shin gets shot down by the anti-UN Valkyrie, and then at the end of episode 1, he's still stuck on that island.
Yeah, but doesn't Roy show up at the end of the first episode? That's when he does the transforming.
Yeah.
You know what? I take that back. I think you're right, because I do remember the VF0 flying over Shin and Sarah on the beach in Jarawalk mode, and then I believe it fully transforms in.
Okay, because I mean, I think that this first episode does a good job of playing into all the prequel expectations that we would have for this. I mean, that first scene with Shin dogfighting against the anti-UN forces. I mean, it's mainly to establish his character as kind of guy who's really good, but also kind of really cold at his job as well. But then when he takes out all these guys and okay, yeah, we know he's good, but then oh wait, there's one other person that he hasn't taken out yet, and this person's taking out all these other fighters as well. And like it's kind of like we know what's going on here. It's like, and so when we see that other mecha transform, it's like, oh yeah, it's like this is we were expecting this. It's like, and that was that was like a really cool moment. Like this first episode like hits all the proper prequel buttons like for the series that it should. It's like I mean like because I mean when I say like I say sound threatening when I'm saying this, but it's kind of like when you're calling yourself like Macross Zero. I mean you're saying like this is like a prequel to all of Macross, and like there's like certain expectations we have here, like that you're going to show us stuff like feeds in, not just feeds in, but facilitates super dimensional fortress Macross.
Mm-hmm.
And like with Shin though, it's like I mean like that's kind of like what he does here. It's like he's his role is to show us like okay, he's like a regular like fighter pilot fighting against like a transformable Valkyrie. It's like and that's like oh man, it's like this is the future of like fighter pilots in Macross. It's like and then but then we also get to like cut to like Professor Ares, who also talks about the AFOS, the artifact from outer space, because she knows that like okay, there's also like he's well versed in the protoculture theory that like aliens came and accelerated like human evolution, and she's like advancing a separate part of Macross history as well. And at the same time, we find out that oh wait, she's also Roy Foker's ex-girlfriend, and it's kind of like oh wow, she knows one of the people we know from the original Macross series, because we had to have someone else from Macross show up here and be a proper protagonist. I mean, God knows that no, Ichijo wasn't going to show up because like Macross is his story. Like name checking him here wouldn't do any good. And Global, well, I don't know. It's like I mean, there's this one like Global looking guy in the series, but I don't know if that's actually him. Correct me if I'm wrong later.
He's the captain, what appears to be the captain of that aircraft carrier.
Okay, so that is him then.
Yeah, that's not Global. That's someone else.
Okay,
that's another captain. That's another captain, right?
Gotcha. Okay, so basically, like Roy is like the only guy from Macross that shows up here. Then,
correct.
Okay, right. So and like that's like another prequel button that you'd expect to be hit right here, like someone from the series showing up here.
I think it's good, quite frankly. And by the way, that transformation sequence happens at the end of episode 1. So for sure, I just verified it. But I think that's good. I think that you have just enough, as much as I have like some issues with like how they're pulling the timeline there, I'm just going to kind of ignore that. Because I don't really want to like justify it. I could sit there and go, yeah, well, this technically happens in, I think it was 2008. Now, mind you, 2008 and 2009 is when they launched the SDF one. So literally like a year beforehand. It doesn't quite.
Like that's I'm looking at the Macross wiki, and that's what they're saying as far as like what happens. Like this is like a year. This like whole series takes place a year before SDF Macross.
So in my opinion, I know we shouldn't like jump the gun. We're still talking about the good, but this would be, in my opinion, the bad. It's kind of like it's a continuity slip. Okay, whatever. There's some things that you can't reconcile if it's only there and there, but maybe you can. I don't know. I'm not the guy who's narrating the story. I'm only watching it.
Yeah, but I will say that like this whole first episode is really good at like just delivering everything we want to see from a Macross prequel, and like delivering the spectacle as well. Because like it's even though it's like 18-year-old CG, it's like it holds up. I think it holds up really well,
amazingly well, and even remastered. This thing looks really good. So
agreed.
On Blu-ray and 4K, it's good. And by the way, and what I was going to mention is that transformation sequence just is like really good to me. I love the perspective, and if it looks more advanced than maybe what we saw in the TV series, I literally don't care. I think it's just great to see that Roy transforms the Valkyrie, and then he's got the eye pinpoint like targeting system going, and uses
I love that sequence where like
and
his eye followed like all the targets and the red dot and how fast he kept up with that. I thought that was so sick.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was crazy. And then and the whole diagram of the thing, like the system's energizing, you can kind of see like, the connections being, yeah, it's just cool looking. It's
Yeah.
some cool eye candy, man, I'll admit.
Yeah, and
So,
also it's like I think for the first episode does a good job of establishing Shin as a likable protagonist. I mean,
yeah.
even though it's like we see him like talking about like to his partner Edgar, it's like I don't need you and all. It's like it's like then when his like F-14 is destroyed and he winds up on this like island like the Mayan islands, and like he winds up like and like the natives like around taking care of him, and he like just picks up the stick and like points it at Sarah. It's like saying like, "Hey," it's like, "Yo, what are you doing here?" And like it's like, and she's like just like having none of his bravado right here. But then he finds out that wait, the stick I was pointing at her was kind of like a proposal stick, like for the people on this island. Oh man, God, I was an idiot, wasn't I?
Yep.
So it's like that was actually kind of fun to just see like like him realize that wait, I was kind of a dork, and yeah, I understand that and I'm gonna go with that. And especially when he talks to her when she's like he sees her making these other sticks underneath. It's like wow, you got like so many other male suitors, don't you? Or are you making like these for like other guys as well? That was a nice bit of character and world building right there that I really appreciated, and it kind of like it endeared me to his character like right there.
I totally agree with you there because at least in the first episode, we kind of get the inkling he's just kind of a cold, calculating type of asshole. Like he's all about piloting and focusing on the mission and the task at hand. But I mean, look at his background and look at what happened to his family. Like I think it can happen to anybody, but once he meets Sarah and the inhabitants of the Mayan island, like you start to see him laugh again and start to humanize again, and it really like opens up his character like as a warm-hearted individual who wants to fight for these people and wants to fight for peace. And so I forgot what episode it was in, but when Roy actually told him, sometimes you got to risk your life for a girl once,
I think it's probably episode 2, and I think Roy was drunk at the time.
Yeah, and it's like you got a good old Roy always drunk, but
Yeah.
He was like, sometimes you got to risk your life for the girl, and we kind of see that progress throughout the series, and I ended up liking his character near the end.
By the way,
and also
that
I do want
that line from Roy is literally it's an homage to the "Do you remember love" line that he says when he's also drunk. So
and also it's like I want to add that like that as far as the good for the series, I think that Roy's like characterization here is a lot more likable and endearing than it was in like Do You Remember Love, which
he's
is
less
the last Macross series we talked about.
He's less crass, but still, he was still grabbing booty and saying.
And it's like, they've also got the perspective like like when Ares when he does that to Ares, she pours some soda on him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like and like that kind of blunts that effect. But also it's like there's this great bit in episode 4 when Ares almost steps on a landmine and he's got to like defuse it like MacGyver style.
Mm-hmm.
But and as he's doing it, it's like it's like they're just reminiscing about like old times, and then when he finally does it, it's like he pulls her off of it and gives her a kiss, and it's like you think, God damn, that is a smooth operator right there.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I mean, it's like just I think that like the way Roy is pitched right here, it's like I mean, yeah, it's like he's got a lot of like the same familiar like hangups, but like he's a much more like charming and endearing. The way the picture like they're much more charming and endearing than they were in it's like in Do You Remember Love, and like I think that's really good. It's like, and I think that that also kind of feeds into like more of the bad. It's like as we'll get into, but
Yep.
I think we want to keep talking about like the good stuff as well.
I'll mention this just as a kind of an Easter egg here, but not really. It's the same voice actor in in the Japanese that played him in the television series And Do You Remember Love? I think that's cool. And I can
because
definitely
voices don't age as quickly as faces.
Correctamundo. So so I think that was definitely it. Now there's some other interesting dynamics here as well. And I'm gonna give a little shout out to Edgar Del Sal.
Yeah,
Because I liked his character.
I did
That
too.
just kept on cropping up. Like you just can't.
He didn't die. It's like the brother didn't die first in this one.
Whether Shin thinks he needed him or not, he was always there when he needed, like when he actually needed him.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I liked his character.
Literal wingman, right?
But another really good point I wanted to bring up too was kind of touching on what Jason said earlier about Shin and his piloting skills. Like earlier on in episode 1, they were just they were piloting F-14 planes, non-transforming, non-Valkyrie planes, and he was a dope pilot. And it wasn't until like he became part of Skull Squadron and had to pilot the VF Zero, where it was almost like he was in crash course for piloting again, getting used to a new way of flying in a new system. And one thing that I appreciated about this series too is kind of giving us like some really detailed innards on how these pilots actually control the Valkyrie, like the pedals for adjusting the thrusters, and of course like when they're in Batroid mode, that's how they walk. And just seeing how originally when they were in the little practice dogfight with Roy and how he was kind of flailing the gun in Jarawak mode, it's not the same as like controlling guns, in a VF-14. So I really loved like throughout this entire series where we see Shin kind of grow as a Valkyrie pilot and how he gets better by obviously the end of the series. So I really love those touches, because as you and I talked about before, John, about that Kit's concept cockpit, that $500 cockpit, and how it lights up and it has the figures and stuff like that. I really love the detailing of having that pilot's view within the series as well, and seeing their point of view when it comes to how precise they have to be in order to not only fight but survive in battle.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and I also kind of want to add that I think that you make the framing for all the fights, like all the CG like fights, is incredible. Like from the second episode when Roy takes on Ivanov over in the
canyon.
It's like in Canyon, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and also like in the final episode, I can't really talk about this too much because I don't want to spoil it. Basically, like Shin like is like about to like face off against like the big problem that everyone's facing off in this final fight, and he's got he's got to like make a decision. It's like, and then when he does, it's like the way this is framed, when he loses his weapons and then all this stuff is firing at him, and then when like the person firing it at him realizes what's going on, that's a really beautiful sequence right there. I think it crystallizes the series ideal that like in order to attain peace, we've got to let go of violence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that was really well done, and it's like, and it hits on but it hits better than like the series attempts to actually articulate that perspective. So like I don't know. It's like I think I'm kind of like all out for my like the good for this series. But guys, do you have anything more to say about that?
Yeah, I'll let Myron chime in if he has anything, and I got a few extra points here to
add. Not necessarily. I mean, I will add that the characters on the island and that whole interaction between Shin being an outsider in the island. I mean, I did kind of like that, but then that also kind of leads into my bad. But I also I really liked You know, well, I like Sarah, but her sister, was it Mao?
Mal.
Mao. Like I really kind of liked her, you know, spunky, kind of happy-go-lucky character, and her kind of actually helping Shin to open up more, you know, versus like
Well, she's willing to
Sarah.
throw out the concho.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I really did enjoy those characters, but you know, as I said, that's going to lead more into my bad. But go ahead, John.
So this series does do a fairly good job of setting up rivalries, and I think that's fair. So you've got and so you have Roy and Ivanov, because Ivanov is one of his old instructors and he's now
Hmm.
anti-UN. So you have that dynamic there, and he recognizes him in that split second
Yep.
when they're flying by each other. He's like, Ivanov, and so then it's just kind of cemented. Then the second one you have is Shin and the other anti-UN pilot,
Yeah,
and
Nora.
Nora,
Nora.
yeah. And you're just like, and that one carries itself pretty well in every one of the dog fights. And I do love
Hmm.
the dog fights. I think
Hmm.
I think all of them are really, really good.
Oh yeah, it's like
Now
they held the spectacle of the series is just communicated really well.
yep. Oh, I forget the it's Professor Hasford,
Ha-
right?
Password.
Halsford, yeah,
Halsford.
Hasford,
And
yeah,
and technically, what's her name? Roy's girlfriend. I can't remember.
Ares.
Aries.
Aries. They're kind of rivals in themselves. Although he kind of points out, like, you're being a hypocrite because what you're trying to do is what I'm trying to do. I'm just doing it on the other side.
Hmm.
So yeah, and without giving those little
Yeah, but
points away.
Hasford is like just plain evil. We'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah. Indeed. And then one of the more interesting, I guess, things is that Mao and what's her name and her sister, the
Sarah.
sisters,
Sarah.
Sarah. One is pro tech, the other just hates it. So I mean, it's kind of a dynamic that's there, right? So
Hmm.
and she literally hates her sister, at least for that piece. She's like, it's like, how could you reject it? And that actually um, so the spoiler here is for Frontier because she appeared.
Yeah, Mao is
Appears in
still is her
Frontier,
front. She's really be a scientist.
Really
right?
Yeah,
interesting. Okay.
So yeah, we have that's a series we still have yet to delve into, but there's some setup here for
yeah.
sure.
It's
And
like
I don't know if Shin Shoji Kawamori was thinking that when he did this. He may have this grand design or whatever, but still.
yeah, it's
Um,
like I understand what you're saying there, John. I kind of want to like get your thoughts on some of the bad stuff that I picked up on later on. But on one hand, I think when like talking about the interconnections between Zero and Frontier, it's like you should not need to watch like a subsequent 25 episode TV series in order to get like in order to understand everything that the 5 episode OVA that preceded it is talking about.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I guess on that note, as far as I'm concerned, like the bad for this series kind of like hinges on the fact that this, as the series goes on over the course of those 5 episodes, this really isn't. Macross Zero reveals itself to be not really a prequel to like the original series, but basically a series set before that series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
and and that's kind of, I agree with that. I say prequel as in it happens before, and that's kind of like, it
but
happens
it doesn't
before the
facilitate that
events.
series.
No, no, it does not. In fact, it's kind of hard to really kind of pull that out of this.
Hmm.
Hmm.
There's, because there's very and this is the other side of the coin. There's very little to connect it to to the TV series that comes after. Supposedly the events that come after this, there's very little. There's Roy.
Hmm.
There's maybe the VF0, but again, there's a conflict which I've already kind of pulled out and kind of
It's like
explained already.
I got theories about how they could have fixed this, but I will save this to like as we're like more further into this. But go on, sir.
Yeah. So that's kind of it. And so I would also say, uh, um, I don't know if I can imagine that some of the bad things might be in the ugly category, and we can explain that as well.
Uh,
But I'm going to say that the whole Birdman premise is a
Mhm.
little bad here.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, what is this, and why am I and like, and why is this even important? I think it's kind of Achilles' heel, in effect.
Hmm.
And that's what I would say is part of the bad. And why is it bad? It's because it doesn't fit the history. It's like, okay, what is this thing?
Yeah.
Why is this a thing that we care about? You know, to me, it's not very strong in its concept. Now, the Mayans on this island, which, yeah, Mayans, okay, that is, I'm not I'm not sure if that means that they're related to the Mayans of the South America, or the Central America culture. I can't tell that. It's just, I'm like, okay, that's a name. Um, it's a little confusing, but so yeah, the whole Birdman mythos. Oh, by the way, I'm going to tell you one thing. Um, he held his breath for a really long time
Hmm.
when Mao is showing him, the Birdman head, as it were.
Her treasure.
okay,
Yeah, her
yeah,
treasure.
that part
Prob-
kind of falls into my ugly. But go on,
Yeah,
please.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, we can kind of table that one for a bit, So, yeah, so if we agree that is, we can discuss that in a minute. So, how about you guys? Can you give me some more bad points about
So
this OVA?
so part of my bad on that, as I said before, as much as I like the island characters and you know, and Mao and everything, I I agree with you on there. Where as I was watching, as I'm seeing Shin kind of like adapt to this culture and live on this island, I got a lot of notes of like Pocahontas. Like it just felt like Shin was the John Smith on this foreign island, and Sarah saw him as the dirty outsider, the Kadun that would bring destruction. And then as time progressed, he learned to, adapt and live into this island life. And then there was just kind of like weird. I wouldn't say weird, but this kind of cliche, romantic dynamic between the two, like off and on, that I've seen so many times, and it really brought vibes of Disney's Pocahontas to me when I was watching this.
Yeah, it's like oh, it's like the in civilization bad. It's like
Hmm.
natural people like it's lifestyle good.
Yeah. And so like Shin was like the Pocahontas. I mean, Shin was like the John Smith. And then when Dr. Aries and the other soldiers came on the island, there was that dramatic like apprehension, like, no, take these, fire sticks and your weapons and get off this land. Like, nah, we're cool. We're just gonna camp at the beach and, just invade your land and, gather some data. Hey, I'll give you some juice if you let us draw some blood. And
Oh man, it's like that's like really kind of interesting because I could swear that the juice is like actually like a product from Earth Girl Arjuna, which was like one of Shoji Kamori's projects prior to Macross Zero. And in fact, the anime they're watching in episode 3 when Shin gets the generator going,
hmm.
that is Earth Girl Arjuna right there.
Oh, okay. That's a nice little Easter egg in there.
Yeah, because like Zero is actually probably like Kamori's like big like naturalism kick. It's like with
Yeah.
Earth Girl Juno was like a more realistic was meant to be a more realistic like magical girl series about like a person who was like meant to like illustrate the connections between like humanity and nature. It's like and either like you got on its wavelength and you accepted it's a like its themes, or you just like rejected it and thought like, oh my god, this is like the most heavy-handed Captain Planet S BS that I've seen. It's like in a good long while.
Hmm.
And I think that as far as the bad goes, like I think that like Kawamori was trying to further that mindset with Macross. Basically, after like after Arjuna didn't really like make a whole lot of like impact in fandom, it's like, well, maybe I can make a bigger case for like this like ecological awareness with if I push this during Macross,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and that's
Ah,
kind of like where we get like it's like like the whole like all that whole like natural awareness series
And we,
perspective like with this series.
yeah, and we see that a lot too, especially like what you guys mentioned earlier about Mao being pro tech and wanting to get the generators and stuff back up, and Sarah being apprehensive, saying, my father said, the Earth lights will, blind out the stars. Are you going to take our stars away?
And I
And
like that, that like that's actually like her guilt speaking once we learn
mhm.
about like her interactions with Professor House Hasford, like in that she gave him like some of her blood in exchange for like a pretty necklace.
Right, and that all kind of correlates, like you said later on in the story, and it kind of it made much more sense in why she's apprehensive, because yeah, her guilt got to her on how she felt she betrayed her people by giving into the sins of outsiders. And yeah, and to John's point as well, I was just totally confused on the whole Birdman thing, just because we know the crash that happened in 1999 was an alien spacecraft, which ends up being the SDF-1. But is this Birdman like part of the alien culture that was in that ship? What do they have to do with the protoculture that was
mhm.
here on Earth? Did they live in that city that rose up in Do You Remember Love? Like, there's still like this little cloud of doubt or confusion on what the Birdman actually is to me. And I
That's
just
yeah,
and
exactly.
I felt like, had they done something like I don't know, like this was actually one of the engineers that modified human DNA or whatever, or it could have been like a Zentradi for a fossilized Zentradi for all I know. Like I agree with you guys. Like, it didn't necessarily tie in to the previous storyline too well, because I have no context for what this creature is.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when they kept talking about the Birdman, I actually thought they were talking about the Valkyries, because at least
Hmm.
Dee Ivanov's and Nora's Valkyrie, when they went to Batroid mode, their wings kind of bent in a type of bird like kind of form, and their frame is small enough to where they look like flying chickens. So, I wish they did that little tie into that better.
Yeah. And that's part of the thing. It's like, hey, um, aliens are just leaving all sorts of crap on Earth, aren't
I
they?
know.
Like,
Yeah,
so
it's like
like here's what the one thing, and here's the one premise that kind of gets a little bit messy here.
To Jason's
Um,
point, like this series brings ecological awareness, but the aliens love to dump their trash all over Earth.
this is true. Yes,
so
can't deny
so
that.
we learned through Do You Remember Love and the television series of Macross that 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 humans were actually a derivative of protoculture. Like
Mhm.
they helped enhance this, and now we have this thing, and they're literally saying the same thing, but I don't see the connection at all,
Right,
and I don't even
Hmm.
see like this thing appears to be a completely different kind of alien,
right,
and I'm kind of going like, what is this? So it's a question I don't understand, and it just doesn't fit. I can't even do the right mental gymnastics to make it work. So like my own head canon, if as it were. So
hmm,
so that's kind of my problem with with these with this the Birdman thing. It's like, oh, okay, and then why is it it appears to be a separate alien thing, because but it doesn't appear to be related at all. And yeah, so it's
It's like
confusing.
maybe it's because I'm not completely like as immersed as like the Macross mythos as you, John. Like I was able to accept that okay, this is just like one of the like the aliens that jump started like that try to jumpstart like human evolution. It's like I was able to accept it like just on that basis, and it's like it's just and what we're seeing is here is just like it's assuming its old mindset. Back in the day, it's like wait, hey, are humans good now? Oh wait, they're not. Okay, time to kill them all.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, right. And that's my problem with it. It just doesn't seem to fit
okay.
what we understand, and so that's why it's bad to me.
Okay, and I do want to go back to talking about Ivanov and Nora, in the sense that okay, yeah, I get that they're meant to be like the antagonists here, but it's like we really don't know all that much about them. In fact, the fact that okay, so he's identified as like Roy's former instructor. It's like okay, that's kind of like a good point to get us to know more about him, but they never do anything more than that. It's like
Mhm.
we never learn like as far as like these the anti-UN forces, we never really get a sense that okay, so they're meant to oppose the UN forces, and that's it. We never get to
Yeah.
learn more about them. Even like Ivanov is just kind of like has that tenuous connection to Roy's backstory, and that's all we have to care about them. With Nora, I mean, okay, she tells us at one point that like the UN, like they burned down my village and all, and they gave me the scar. Coincidentally, after she took part in the burning down of the native village, like of the
Mhm.
Mayan village in the previous episode. Oh, and then later in that episode, she basically says, "Let's go ahead and like call in a fuel air bomb to burn down." It's like this, like all the fauna here, so we can flush out these roaches. It's like you're you're no better than the people you're talking about. The people who did this to you. It's like, and the series isn't going to address that. I mean, what the hell, man? It's like there's the series like had plenty of like opportunity to, like flesh out its antagonists, but it just doesn't. It doesn't for whatever reason. And oh my god, Professor Hasford. I mean, yeah, okay, so he's the guy who came with protoculture theory, but god damn, the guy's just like an evil creeper. I
Yeah.
mean, just like offering, hey, it's like, hey, Sarah, it's like, you want to give me your blood for this like this pretty necklace? Yeah,
What a creep.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's all there is to his character. I
Mhm.
mean, there's
He's evil.
with a capital E, sir.
That's right.
Yep. And correct me if I'm wrong here, fellas, but or if I missed something, but I still didn't grasp the significance of the priestess's blood. Like, were they like, are did their DNA hold the key to like protoculture, like manipulation,
Ooh, it's
or
like
I didn't catch that.
I I I want. I think I've got some theories about that but John, do you have anything to say about that before I go off on it?
No.
Okay, because okay,
Go for it.
because here's the thing with Matt with like that with like like Mal. I mean, with Sarah having being established as having and the whole like Islanders being established as having like magical like blood powers. It's like well, this is either like mildly damaging to the Macross mythos or really damaging
Hmm.
because on one hand, like like Macross is kind of like founded upon the idea that hey, we'll all get along if we can find like some like shared like aspect of pop culture to agree upon. Because like the Zentradi, like I mean they joined up with like the SDF crew because no man, hey, you like Min May, we like Min May too. Oh my
Yeah.
god, man, let's be friends.
Mhm.
And like it wasn't because Minmay had magical singing powers. It's like in her blood or in her voice. When you start bringing in like oh wait, Sarah's got like magical singing powers like in her voice. Oh wait, this is kind of awkward because like this kind of like implies that like that singing has the power to like to shift allegiances and mindsets and oh wow it's like so where do we go with this from here like what are we meant to infer from the fact that she's got magical singing powers So
Yeah.
yeah,
and
that
it's
is deeply problematic for the Macross mythos as a whole. And I have not seen, and I seem to remember, I vaguely remember them this being a like a point in a Macross Frontier. But I don't know if John, like you've probably seen Frontier like more recently than I have. So I don't know if you want to like add anything to this or.
Well, um, if we consider that, I believe Soji Kawamori has always believed in the power of song,
Mm-hmm.
and there are certain areas um, and certain series like Macross 7 where he really lays it on thick. And this is another representation of that. And I think Macross Delta does the same.
Mm.
And in fact, it's kind of pivotal to that series, if I'm not mistaken. And actually, you do see it in Frontier, but I'm gonna have to rewatch that series to make sure that that's that my memory is serving me correctly. So because um, we do get that, but then there's other elements as well. So, but in Macross 7, it was the weapon. and and so and yeah, it's
So
kind of a
is
fuzzy
Zero? It's like it's
concept.
kind of like is Zero kind of its midi chlorians moment.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty apt comparison.
and
Okay.
So
that's one thing that kind of like I got hung up on because at least from Macross, do you remember Love? Like we know how the protoculture kind of like um, gave humanity the gift of like the arts and culture, and they truly believed and appreciated that. And Minmay's song that actually united a species was a lost song that they found in the city of the
culture.
protoculture. In this series, when Sarah's singing "Naked in the Lake," at first I was like, "Oh, is she like the Lin Minmay of this series?" But it's just that one song of creation, and then apparently,
Well,
uh,
she really is the Lin Mimi of the series, but go on.
yeah. But it just she is the Lin Minmay of the series, but at the same time, I didn't get that vibe from her because it's like aside from the song of creation she knew, and then of course like this alien has the song of destruction. It's like, where did this song come from? How did you learn this? Was it passed down like between all the priestesses, or was this embedded in an ancient ruin somewhere? Like, obviously, this song has some great power where in which like plants grow and life thrives. But for me, like, I mean, I'm not trying to like get an in-depth explanation here, but I would have liked to known a little bit more, like to Jason's point, like, is it just magical singing powers, or is this something that has derived from the alien culture that once lived on this earth? And I wish they kind of had a little bit more time to delve deeper in that. I think maybe if this been 6 or 7 episode OVA to where they can elaborate on some of the points, like even you brought up, Jason, like a good flashback would have been great to kind of like flesh out Roy and Ivanov's relationship. I think a little flashback on Nora's like traumas of why she's fighting in this war and why there's an anti-UN faction in the first place to kind of bring all this up, I think would have definitely helped solidify a lot of the loopholes or a lot of the holes in this story.
I agree with you, Myron. It's like I think that hey, if they had gone for like another 2 episodes, like that would have been like afforded them more like space to like flesh out like some of these relationships. I mean, like that being said, it's like I watched the series when it originally came out, and it's like it was like a new episode every 6 months, and oh my god, like the wait for these things was like unbearable. I mean, I will say that like the spectacle that each episode offered was like really impressive and like and worthwhile. Like like to make like the wait seem to make that wait seem worthwhile, especially after that first episode, like got me on the boat, like for the series. But as far as like all a lot of these problems that we're talking about, I think that there is one thing that would have like solved them like pretty well, and that is get rid of Shin, give his role to Roy.
Mm,
Basically make Roy, it's like, like the guy who is like, like the ace, like the ace of the squadron. It's like who has like, this girlfriend like who was like, like talking about like this crazy protoculture stuff, and then like he gets shot down and meets this like, this hot girl. It's like the hot priestess girl on. It's like in the native islands, and gets to know about like her connection to like to the bird people. That I think would have done a gone. I think like if they just like, because I think that like for most of the series up until the very end, like Roy and Shin's stories are like distinctly separate.
and
Like
you know what? I totally agree with you on that, Jason. Just because not only am I a Roy Fokker fan, but having Shin just added another layer of complexity to spend more time to talk about and flesh out. And had it been just Roy as the central protagonist, like they could have had more time to kind of flesh things out a little bit better. And then on top of that, we know from at least the television series that Roy volunteered and fought in the war, and then after the war was done, instead of coming back home, he remained, in the fight. And I think that could have been fleshed out a little bit more as well had it focused on him as the main character.
Yep.
okay, I appreciate that, but it's at this point it's all kind of like woulda, coulda, shoulda,
Yeah,
like stuff. Like I mean, like I I like to think like, hey, this is a great idea, but like, hey, we have to kind of like
live with it.
live with what we got, and I think what we got is all right, but I, is it time to talk about the ugly?
Well, yeah, I want to make one comment though, on something you said, Jason, and that
Yes.
was on the timing of the original, when these were released. And
Hmm.
we saw these. Jason and I saw these, when as we the
During the,
fan
like the
club picked it up.
6 month waiting period between each episode. Yeah.
Yep. So the problem there is that it's kind of hard to piece these things together. So when you have such a huge amount of time between them, and then this, now having all of this together definitely helped our perspective, I think, on the
Hmm.
entire thing. And maybe that this might have been a better end comment, but for sure this is, it's like, oh, okay, so this is how the story is supposed to flow from beginning to end. And there's some, the problems are easier to see, I think. But that's
Yes.
my comments there.
Yeah. It's like I mean, like usually it's like when you're watching something all at once, without the weekly or even like the monthly in this case, like waiting
Mhm.
periods. It's like sometimes it holds together a lot better. But unfortunately, I think like, well, I think Zero has a lot of good to recommend it. I think that watching it all at once does kind of make you realize that, oh, it doesn't quite hold together. It's like as well as we would have liked.
Mhm. So let's proceed to the ugly.
So like I understand that Shin like kind of kisses like a 12-year-old girl. It's like underneath
Yeah,
the water and all.
I knew you're gonna bring that up. I because
Yeah.
that was top on my list too. I'm like going, what?
It's like, God damn it, Japan! Why you got to do this to us?
I'm like, what's this about? And it throws you for a loop, because in Macross, so there's another thing Macross is about. And it's about love triangles. And you're just like going,
Yes.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
No,
Why
it's like
does this
that's why
have
I
to
think that
be
like
here?
bringing in like Roy as like the main protagonist like for this series and running out Shin would have worked. It's like he's got Ares on one side, like the scientist, and then you got like Sarah on the other, like like the naturalist and all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there's definitely, that's my top ugly for sure. I'm like, what? Again, it's like, I get it. He's, you made him dive all this way. He saw this thing and he lost it, and I'm already running out of breath just watching him like run out of oxygen, and then you pull that on me. Okay, fine, man, whatever. Um, how is this kid like staying alive? She magic? Okay, lots of magic. Magic.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. So please go on.
No, I'm
Uh,
gonna let. Yeah. Go on. Go for it.
oh, okay, because it's like I mean, on one hand, it's like you got like the whole like 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 natural people good, like civilized people bad. But then you start pulling out stuff like Mao is able to like communicate with Shin. It's like like magically. It's like in the final episode, and I'm kind of like, wait, what? It's like I mean, it's like okay, at least Macross Plus, like the movie version, at least like had that had that microphone like pop up to at least allow us to accept that like Myung was able to like to sing to Isamu to get to him right there. But
Mm-hmm.
here it's kind of like, wait, what? You're choosing like this level of magical realism that like I don't think Macross has dabbled in up to this point. It's like and like my God, it's like it makes no sense, and especially like the bit where like a bit at the end where like I don't want to give too much away, but basically like Shin dies and then becomes a Birdman, or his plane becomes a Birdman, and I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of get what you're going for here, but that is like a level of like magicality that this franchise has not dabbled in up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh my God. Oh, and can I go off about how Ivanov and Nora are basically like they're totally into having sex with each other, and like that the series kind of like brings that as like they're the bad guys. So
Yeah.
that's there too. So that's like, man, it's like just let these people have sex, man, and not punish them for it, man. It's like just why can't you why Kawamori? Why can't you let us have this?
They're breaking horror movie rules 101.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Indeed. All right. Any other ugly pieces we want to bring out here?
I felt it was very weak that how Nora and Ivanov went out. Like, the final dog fight where they were like, I'm gonna take Foker, and she's like, I'm gonna take the boy, and you had these awesome dog fights that were anticlimactic to where they like the protagonist didn't take him out or actually like outdo.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
You are absolutely right, Myron.
I thought that was pretty like whack. Like, oh really? You guys just like suicide, try to kill? Like, well, she gets led into the crossfire of the blast, and Ivanov, I guess knowing that he lost his booty call, gets mad. And and he and he's like, if I can't get with Nora, like
If I can't tap that anymore,
this world is not worth living in, and just does a suicide drive. And I was like, yeah, that was whack. Another thing that kind of irritated another thing that kind of irritated me was that earlier on when I talked about how I loved um how Shin learned to pilot. He was like a fledgling himself with the VF Zero, and how he learned to fly. Well, it seemed like it didn't really click for him until he went under the sea. So another Disney reference. Like he went
What?
under the sea and found some flying fish, and then saw the fish fly when he was in the boat, and it's like, oh crap, now I know how to pilot this plane. Now I get it. And all of a sudden it's like next time you have your first major battle in the VF Zero, like you're like super dope again. And I kind of felt that was a little cheesy. So yeah, those were like my only two major irritants in the ugly, along with what you guys said about Mao hooking up with Shin under the sea, even though she was giving him quote unquote air. That's not what really happened.
Yeah. So another ugly point, and this will be on the technical side of the equation, is flying submarines and flying aircraft carriers.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
After the Birdman leaves, I'm like, how are they still flying? I thought it was a thing where they were just, the Birdman pieces were literally lifting it up, and that's what it appeared to be. But then they left, and they're still flying, and they don't drop for a while. And I'm like,
Yeah,
they can't be that far. Oh, I mean, like, so
you're right, John. And I also want to bring up just the fact that when Shin gets his head shot off in the final episode, he certainly falls for a long, long time, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. It's like I remember that scene. I'm like, oh damn, this cat's still falling, and then he wakes up in time, or Mao wakes him up in time to get back into the fray. But to John's point too about the flying subs and aircraft carriers, like if it were that easy, then why spend like 10 years resurrecting a big ass SDF-1 when you could have just applied that song technology to your pre-existing warships?
Right.
Yeah, it's like I gotta admit, it's like it was kind of impressive that that the aircraft carrier that the UN forces were flying, like just fell fell back into the seas like with no problems.
Yeah, right. I was like, that can't be right. Yeah, even when it fell, I mean, I'm like, that's not right, because you're literally taking. It's like they say that when an object hits like water, there's a thing called terminal velocity, and it's fast enough to literally like just peel, like just destroy it. It's like two objects hitting each other. Water is a solid object, and if you hit it, and if you hit it fast enough, you're going to damage.
It's going to feel like cement.
This thing was like, this is like a rubber ducky falling in a bathtub. Like, oh, it just splashes. No, that's not how it works. But okay.
and I can't imagine for you guys who watched this like when it was new and having to wait, for how many years?
6 months.
Yeah, because they released like two episodes in a year.
Yep.
And so it was like over a 3-year time span having to complete this. I can imagine back then, we're so starved for anything Macross related. Like you're kind of looking at it, through more rose-colored glasses. Like, oh man, this is awesome, or oh man, this was a good episode. But as I was watching this, it's like, I mean, I enjoyed the entire run through, but I can imagine being pissed, like, oh man, this is how it ends, and I gotta wait like till November or December for the next one to come out, or March. So I can just imagine the frustration on you guys, like having to wait this long, but now having the opportunity to watch everything consecutively and being able to kind of break it down a little bit more objectively. Like, yeah, I mean, this was a good entry. I think it was a good entry in the series. Like, good for me, maybe being like, I give it about like a good solid, 7.5, out of a 10.0 scale. But, I can only like feel your pain like back then, having to wait so long, because me being a Gundam fan, it was the same way with Gundam Unicorn, which I thought was masterful. But yeah, same thing. It was like maybe 2 episodes a year. But then one thing that I appreciated that they did was, I think they originally planned for like 5 or 6 episodes, but then they stretched it out to 7 because there was more story that they wanted to flesh out. So it actually took a lot more time for this series to come out. And then when you actually sit back and watch it more objectively, like each episode, at least in my opinion, is masterful on its own, but all together, like it was just one of the best Gundam series like ever made. And so I think I'm not sure from your history of watching anime and watching OVAs. I've never really seen, to me, OVAs were more like 1, possibly 2 to tell a whole story. Like when it gets episodic, like 5 or more, like Macross Zero is like the earliest I can remember where I saw like a multi-part OVA series. And so like having to wait that long for everything to come out is excruciating, and you want it to be good, especially having to like wait that long. But yeah, I liked it, but at the same time, I just wish it just like we said before, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I really wanted this to be a little bit more uh, a coherent storyline to attach to our previous series.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my last ugly on this, by the way, is Aries and Roy.
Why?
Okay.
And it's strictly for the fact that if you watch the TV series and you hear and the story so there's that one episode and I keep talking about it, at least I talked about it earlier, where Claudia is talking about his relationship with Roy,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't seem to factor in the story whatsoever. In fact, it's like they had a deep thing going on. Yet, if you watch that episode, it's a good episode where Claudia is talking to Misa about Roy. This is after he is killed. You know, she talks about like how he was, and how he was, really into her. It just again, this is another continuity thing, but to me, it's like that counts. So that's one of my biggest things. It's sort of like I like the way it's not that it's a bad relationship. I think that if self-contained, it's fine, like in the story. However, I think I like the original premise. I like the other girlfriend. How's that?
Right.
So
So
basically, you're kind of saying like basically like this like a reconciliation he was going through with Ares. He was kind of already dating. He was already kind of getting into Claudia at the time. Is that kind of what's implied
that's
by the
that
timeline?
it certainly does because in there,
Oh,
he
Roy,
talks
you scoundrel, sir!
Roy, yeah,
Yeah,
isn't he a scoundrel? So,
yeah.
he's a tramp. Anyway, so in that story, Claudia talks about like how he was showering her with gifts and all this other stuff, and then there was this period of time, and then they both went to South Lataria Island, which where's SDF-1 is, and he meets her again. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, I've got all these gifts for you." I don't need these. Like she kept them just to give them back to him. Like,
Wow.
and it had been some time, you know.
Were those were,
And
were those guilty gifts for cheating?
no, I think that so it's implied that he was really into her.
Hmm.
Like there was something else there, and then in that story, the R word, Robotech actually spins it slightly differently. But there's a part where he calls her from a phone booth on South Terry Island, before all the events in the beginning of the series happens, and he's like, yeah, I'm out here in the rain, I'm drunk, but I wanted to tell you what was really going on with me and why I think you're important and all that. So it's like he felt like she was someone that he could confide in. Now, understanding all that and then seeing like how this play, now I could probably say like, yeah, well, he's just he's playing two sides of a different, two sides, he's playing that gigolo game.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it sure makes him, it kind of like undermines him as character as a whole, if that's true. And it kind of makes that story like, okay, Claudia, guess what, he's just he wasn't being 100% genuine with you. So and so it's like I said, self-contained, it's fine, it works for me. As a whole, like I said, and this is just one of my continuity picks with Zero, is that it kind of jives with it, and I'm like, I'm not really, or it kind of conflicts with it, I should say.
Hmm.
So that's my biggest problem. But rewatching it, I admit, I'm like, yeah, I do like how how they talk. I think this is good. It's fine, but
They're
it
talking like
certainly wasn't.
adults. So
Yeah, and that's the commendable part. Like, it's a side of Roy that we don't really see much. I mean, like I told you about that piece there, but that was a flashback essentially.
Hmm.
But you didn't get that much dialogue out of this guy. They're little pieces because Macross is not, again, to your point, Jason. Macross is really about Hikaru,
Hmm.
Ichicho. It's not really about Roy. Roy is his senpai and always has been. His
Yeah,
senior.
and that Macross Zero, it's like really isn't a prequel to Macross. It's basically a story that takes place prior to Macross.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'll say I misspoke a little bit. It's just it's not after. It's somewhere before. A prequel really, like Anakin becoming Darth Vader or something. That's a
Yeah.
prequel.
So for all we shit on the the Star Wars prequel trilogy, like it functioned as an actual prequel, like to like the original trilogy. Zero like really does not.
Yeah, it's almost like they should have just, yeah, like they could have just, like, here's a side story.
It's like, hey,
That's it.
give us like what Roy Fokker was up to prior to the events of Macross. It's like, and I think that would have like worked a lot better. Like, like I like Shin, but write him out, put Roy in his place, and then you've got like someone who's got like all this stuff to juggle, like prior to the series, and he's got like this like a love triangle as well between Ares and between Sarah as
Yep.
well.
Hmm.
Agreed. Yep. And if they were trying to set a love triangle up between Mao and Sarah,
God
it was
damn it,
not,
Japan!
it was just not a good one. It wasn't even a
Hmm.
good effort.
Nope.
And quite frankly, at the end, it really didn't matter.
No, it didn't.
Nope.
It was like, oh, here's a thing, and now it's gone. Whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I really got on that point.
Yeah. So I guess ultimately it's like like there are parts of like Zero that I really like, but ultimately, like in the words of like Siskel and Ebert, I gotta give this like a marginal thumbs down in the sense that it's like it has like great spectacle to recommend it, like some great character moments like alongside it, but as far as like like illuminating like like Macross like prior to the to the original series, it doesn't do that, and just like does a lot of stuff that's just like boneheaded and kind of like dumb along the way. So I mean, it's
So
like I mean, it's not terrible, but I don't know. It's like I'm not sure I could say like hey, go out and like watch, go out and like break like copyright law to watch this fan sub.
well,
So
I'll give you this. First of all, I won't be the black and white kind of, like thumbs up, thumbs down, but I will give it a rating of like, okay, there's reasons why you would want to watch this if you're a Macross fan. Um, it's more watchable than
Seven.
Macross. No, wait. Macross 2. Sorry.
Oh, two.
It's season
dude, it's like
12.
Macross 2 is like the low bar of the series. I mean,
Yeah.
what isn't more watchable than Macross 2?
Yeah, this is true. This is true. So, um, if you like mecha and you like that kind of thing, and you want it in, you're in for that, and hey, hey, boys and girls, it's Roy Fucker. All right,
Uh huh.
then there's some cool stuff that you can watch there, because I do like his character in this. I will
Mm-hmm.
admit, it is good.
Agreed.
And I love this, the special effects and all that. But yeah, it's not, you're gonna kind of question it a lot. I would say if you watch it, just kind of just suspend, if don't be too hung up on the continuity. Kind of watch it for what it is, come to your own conclusion. But yeah, I would rate it pretty much right in the middle. I would say it's not great, but it's not horribly bad. There are some things in it that I could do without, but it wasn't unwatchable. It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah.
More
Uh,
enjoyable on its own terms than like in the terms of like the overall continuity of Macross.
yep. Yep. It might have been better if it wasn't even like called, like if Roy wasn't in it and it was there's so like certain elements. Oh, by the way,
Interesting.
one of the things I wanted to mention is that I get that the enemy can steal, like it's happened all throughout history, but them, the anti-UN forces stealing over technology and creating their own Valkyries kind of messes with my head a little bit too. Because I'm like, all right, that's interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll let it slide. That's an unfortunate
They
thing
would
to
have been
say.
even more boring otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's an unfortunate thing to say, but I'm like, okay, what else are you gonna do? You can't like have giant aliens yet, which is one of
Mhm.
those things that I had when I originally saw this series. I'm like, yeah, okay, there's not gonna be Zentradi. What are these guys all about? Okay, so without
Not
me
much, it
saying
turns out
anymore,
to be.
yeah, without me saying anymore, I'll just let Myron go.
No, I mean, I don't really have, much else to say. I mean, like I said, it was finally nice to actually watch this in its entirety because I mean, I think I got from you many moons ago, like, first, like, actually, I got the whole series from you many moons ago, but I only watched like maybe I watched the first episode and maybe half of the second and never really sat and watched the whole thing through. So I was happy enough to kind of watch this. And again, I mean, as a story, yeah, it really wasn't there for me, but man, like I really loved the dogfight animations and sequences. I really love the mech designs, um, especially the VF Zero. Like even though it was like a precursor to what we know from Macross, like I don't know, it was just more advanced looking to me. I
Yeah,
love that Valkyrie. So yeah, I'm excited to actually now knowing that Mao will kind of continue on in the series. Like I'm really a little bit more excited to try to get my eyes on Frontier and actually watch that because that's another series I never really finished either.
She figures into it briefly, but she's still there.
Okay.
yep, yep,
So, but that's nice that I mean, despite the messiness of continuity we discussed, I mean, there's still some type of continuity to it, I guess.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm just on a Macross high right now because, like I said, or like we've all said, prior, I mean, we're kind of starved for any as a fan, we're starved for any type of content or merchandising. So
yeah.
I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, and when you said that, it literally made me flash back to when Jason, when we were watching it originally in the anime club, and it was like, yeah, Seven was horrible. Um, let's see what they come
We'll
up
never
with.
get tired of dunking on Seven.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's easy.
I mean, and it makes it easy for this series to be praised. Like when you guys said you have Seven and Macross Two, which tend to be consensus when it comes to lowest points in the Macross saga.
Yeah,
So
and I mean, when you watch Seven, the animation quality isn't even up to par to what you would expect from a series that followed Macross Plus. I mean,
Hmm.
which just has some
Well, it
incredible.
was a TV series. I get we can.
Yeah,
It's like I mean we can like at least give it that. But
yeah,
I mean,
this is
other
true.
than that, it's like like yeah, it's like it doesn't really have much to recommend it like storytelling wise. Aside from that, I mean, like
Yep.
once you get it, like oh yeah, it's a TV series, so it's obviously not going to look as good as the OVA. But even then, it's like it doesn't even have like the storytelling chops to compete with Plus.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So, and there we got it. I think eventually, if not next, I don't know. We may be talking about Macross Plus, which is, I know it's like going back kind of in release order, but I look forward to having that conversation with you guys.
Yeah,
And
it's like I'm gonna go back and watch. I mean, like I know there's like it exists in both OVA and movie forms, but like I've seen the movie form like more than enough at this point. But I'm gonna like go back and watch the OVAs. It's like to get a better feeling as far as things go.
yeah, and I haven't seen Macross Plus since it aired on the Sci-Fi Channel when they used to have Saturday morning anime. and
Whoa.
that's how old I am. I'm dating myself, but yeah, that's and even back then it was the movie version, I believe. So I'm really excited to sink my teeth into this series too, because as I bitch all the time, because of unavailability, I have never been able to buy this or acquire this in the past. So I'm glad that you know, John, you let us giving us the opportunity to be able to watch these again. So I'm excited to get back into it, and also a little afraid that it's gonna spark the bug for making more shoot from the hip purchases.
Yep. Oh, totally. I get that. So hey, yeah. So we'll talk to you next time about Macross Plus. All right.
Or whatever
See you
else.
again.
Yeah.
Yep, or whatever else. Yep, exactly. Depending on the schedules. So we'll talk to y'all later.
All right.
Good evening, kiddies.
Good
Later.
evening.